And I remember visiting you in the office and you just like humming the tune that George had written around the office.
You've just given away all my trade secrets.
And my gosh, did she pull it out of the bag up on stage in front of hundreds of people the other day.
Hello, welcome back to Season 4 of Hello World, a podcast for educators interested in computing and digital making. I'm Carrie-Anne Philbin, computing educator, currently working on support for computing educators around the world. How can someone explain to me, how did we make it to Season 4? I honestly didn't think we'd actually have listeners, but it turns out we do.
I know, right? I mean, who'd have thought we'd have been here at this point, having, starting our 4th season. I'm James Robinson, a computing educator, competitive geek, and someone who loves seeing technology being used creatively to solve problems. And like you, Carrie-Anne, I'm really excited to be starting our 4th season. We've got some great conversations lined up. And as ever, we're really interested in your comments and your feedback. And we'd love for you to share those thoughts at helloworld.cc/podcast feedback.
Well, today we've been thinking a lot about whether or not computing competitions are actually worth the effort. It feels like an extra thing as a teacher. Like when I was teaching, it felt like I'm planning my lessons, I'm teaching my lessons, I'm assessing my lessons, I'm doing all these other things, duties, you name it. This feels like extra work. And so I'm ashamed to say I didn't always kind of get involved in computing competitions. But now, I remember the first time I met you, James Robinson, in person, in the flesh, was at a robotics competition. It was Pi Wars in about 1864. I can't even exactly remember how far the exact year or how long ago it was. It was quite a while ago. And you were with a group of students, and you were quite stressed, I recall, because your robot was sort of in a phase of giving up the ghost. And I think you were gaffer taping it together or trying to keep it together. So I recall that you did enjoy computing competitions and you did get involved in them. And so I suppose for me, I wonder why.
It's a really good question. And I too remember that event. And maybe that day my enjoyment level wasn't as high as it could have been. There's always a degree of stress that comes with competitions. And I seem to remember that one being the very first Pi Wars where everybody's robot had used the sort of the Bluetooth communication hack and was being controlled by a Wii remote. And of course, you've got a room with 30 different Wii remotes trying to communicate with 30 different robots. It just doesn't work and things get a bit cross-wired and confusing. So yeah, that was a stressful day, but it was also really enjoyable because the kids ultimately they took a lot from it and they just were just happy to be there seeing something that they had made perform and compete and get inspiration from other people. So yeah,
I knew you were going to say it's all for the children. It's because of the kids.
I know. I'm just that kind of wholesome individual, Carrie-Anne. No, but it was. I think it was a really fascinating, great experience. They took away loads of ideas from that, and I think for me, competitions are a really good opportunity for learners who have an interest, a passion, to apply that learning into a new and challenging context. It makes that learning really real for those learners. But of course, as you've alluded to, I think there is a time commitment. I remember committing to another project that I took part in was First Lego League, which lots of people will have heard of. But it's a competition where you get like a term's worth of time to prepare. You go to a competition, you have a little robot challenge, you have a presentation, and there's team awards and all sorts. And I remember committing to it, and then by like the 6th week, where my kids were still squabbling over whether to use this like mechanism or that mechanism or which challenge to solve first, and I'd had a busy teaching week and I wasn't quite as prepared for the session as I wanted to be. It can be a bit draining and it can be a bit tiring, but I think the rewards there's a real payoff taking the kids to that competition. Carrie-Anne, I know that you haven't in your school experience done lots of entering competitions, but you've been on the other side of that, right? I know that you've been a judge for a competition at least on one occasion. What's that like? What do you think you get or students get from those competitions?
Yeah, I mean, I'm being quite flippant about not kind of entering competitions when I was a teacher because of the extra effort. But even when I was teaching, I did judge quite a lot of competitions. I judged at YRS, I did a little bit. I did, I've done some judging around coolest projects. And every time I really enjoy it judging, it's not because I want to see some people rise to the top. I actually just enjoy interacting with young people and hearing the journey that they've been on to create the project or the thing that they've come up with. Like, how did they start out? What was their original idea? How did they kind of get that idea whittled down? How did they then prototype that idea? Kind of what's the next steps for that idea? And whenever you talk to young people, you are reminded of how amazing they are, how free and creative, and how much they care about the world around them. And it's incredibly humbling, I think, just as an adult, as a human being, to hear from young people when they talk about their work. But also, it just reminds you that with the right introduction to certain aspects of technology, they could go on to change the world in such a meaningful way. So I think judging is, if you're not up for the hard work of working with young people and entering them into the competition, then do what I do and judge because you still get a lot out of it.
One thing that you did judge, and it was the easiest competition I've ever entered because I just told my class about it. And George, do you remember George?
Yes.
So he was a student of mine. We'd done a unit on Sonic Pi, and he just went away and decided to enter a competition for a Sonic Pi tune. And he won? Not
He
just one of the
won.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I remember visiting you in the office, and you just like humming the tune that George had written around the office, and that was low maintenance competition entry. That was.
Well, I mean, just listening to music that's been generated by code is amazing. And actually, his music was so good. In fairness to George, his was so amazing that we were humming it because it was just so emotive that myself and our designer had actually come up with a pitch for an animation to go with that music because it was so good. But yeah, that was pretty low bar to entry, but high ceiling, right? And I think that's another thing that's really interesting about competitions. So probably enough of our limited experience and kind of anecdotal evidence. Probably worth talking to some educators who are veterans of computing competitions to help us kind of explore the possibilities and, yeah, why not, some of the pitfalls. So I'm pleased to say that we're joined by Christine Harvey, who's Director of ICT and Digital Learning at a secondary school in Leeds in the UK. She's a very experienced computer science teacher and examiner. It's always a pleasure to be able to talk to her. So tell us, Christine, about some of the competitions that you've taken part in and whether or not you have a favourite. You don't have to say mine, that's fine. I won't be offended.
Thanks very much, Carrie-Anne. So yeah, I'm really lucky to have been involved over the past 7 or 8 years in a range of computer science competitions or digital competitions. I think I do have a few favourites. Listening to you and James talking there, I think one of the really important things for me is that low maintenance aspect to the competition. Teachers, we're notoriously busy creatures. And some of my favourite ones happen to be the most low maintenance for the teachers involved. And your role becomes not one of a teacher or an educator, but more of a facilitator. So I do an awful lot of signposting pupils to competitions and getting them going on it and opening up the room and storing the gear and driving the minibus or getting someone to drive the minibus. But at the end of the day, they self-motivate. And for me, that's what these competitions are about. It's not the prizes. It's not really the tech they're doing. It's the journey as young people that they make, particularly the team events. So if I was to choose a couple, the top of my list, and everybody in the country must enter this competition, is Cyber First Girls competition. We went from a computer science department with mostly boys at A-level to a computer science department 7 years later with more girls than boys at A-level. And one of the predominant factors for that was the Cyber First for Girls competition. It's for year 8 girls, so that's girls who are about 12 or 13. And it's an online challenges that they have to solve. They have a week to do it. They're in teams of 4, so it's teamwork, splitting the work up between the 4 of them. And they just go at it. And it's great as a teacher because all you have to do is sign them up online, give them their usernames and passwords, and off they go. We had some students doing it at home. If they had computers or devices, they can do it on tablets or phones. I'd open up the IT rooms at lunchtime. We even had some girls have cyber sleepovers and spend the weekend around each other's house. But I think it's a bit of an excuse. I think there was a lot of sleeping over going on and a small amount of online challenges. But it's been great, and we've been lucky enough in 2 different schools that I've worked in to get through to the finals, and those girls really value that experience.
That's great. And it's really, I think that teamwork aspect, as you mentioned there, is really, really important, and another really big thing about competitions. So also joining us to share their experience with younger learners, both within and also beyond school, is Iseult Mangan. She's a primary school teaching principal, Teen Turn Lead Mentor, Coder Dojo Mentor, MozFest Youth and Futures Wrangler, Raspberry Pi certified educator. And as someone that works with learners in different contexts, do you find that different competitions appeal to different groups of students?
Absolutely, yeah, yes. I mean, you can have, I always throw this one out as an example to everybody. If you teacher holds up a colouring competition and class of 30 in front of them, there's going to be about 4 or 5 who are going to love to colour it in, but there's going to be how many of the rest of them that have no interest in colouring in and want to draw extra pieces on the page. It's similar with computer competitions. I like them to be kind of inclusive, especially with, I'm teaching in a primary school that has children from age 4 to 12 in the one classroom. So it has to appeal to all the different ages and abilities. So it's got to have from, I mean, even block-based coding to text coding, whatever else, but it even has to be inclusive of things like the presentation, things like making a little pitch about it. Physical builds, they absolutely love anything that involves makerspace and getting things out messy and dirty with their computing skills. They absolutely love that sort of a type of a competition. Again, another one, I'm a fan of low maintenance. I like open-ended competitions that maybe give you a theme. Because of majority of my competitions I enter would be in school, it must link to my teaching and learning, but still be open-ended. So for example, in Ireland, schools work towards flags that they work on kind of extracurricularly in their schools. So things like a green flag, which would be for environmental stuff. So if a competition comes in and it's got an environmental theme into it, it'll slot straight into the curriculum, but leave it be open-ended. So we can say if we're working on our green flag for rubbish or if we're working on it for transport, that we can slide it into a different theme or topic within that frame.
And so you've both talked about ones that you enjoy taking part of and also the kind of impact a little bit on the young people that you work with. But what's kind of your motivation for entering the competitions?
Oh, sometimes if they link up to the curriculum and if you're really lucky and it links up to something you're covering in class that week, it's like a carrot. It's like a golden carrot. Let's work on a project for this. And instead of just giving it to me to correct at the end of the week, let's, make a pitch about it. Let's turn it into a scratch animation. Let's show it to our parents. Let's showcase it. Let's enter it in this competition. And then let's look at everyone else who entered stuff. You get 10 times the learning for free.
Yeah, what I heard there as well was the word opportunities, and that really is it for me. It's opportunities for our young people that they might not get at home. They definitely, might not get in the curriculum, the secondary curriculum for year 11s onwards, 11-year-olds onwards. Sorry, a lot of that's quite fixed and structured. So to be able to do some cybersecurity with the Cyber First girls, or to build some robotics in the first Lego League or Pi Wars, that doesn't always get to happen within our secondary curriculum. So it's great to give them those opportunities. And I also heard you talking there about showcase. And for me, the biggest motivation, apart from, doing it for the kids and the kids having the opportunities, is showcasing computer science. I mean, computer science was new in our school 7 years ago, and the school I'm working in now, we're just really establishing it in the curriculum. And to be able to have those showcase stories of pupils working in teams, going to competitions, taking part in competitions, a tweet about it, a blog about it, a piece on the school website, it's great publicity for a subject I'm passionate about and trying to grow. And it creates a real buzz amongst the kids. You know, the kids are like, "Ooh, this computing department is so exciting. There's things happening here. Ooh, what are you doing now? Can we get involved?" And for me, I've established a really successful department at my old school because of clubs and competitions, and I'm doing the same again at my new school.
I think to echo that slightly into sort of a slightly different kind of tack. I think I found the same thing. Like when you're a competition, winning a competition or running up or entering or participating, it can draw attention to your subject. It can get that publicity. It can get the attention of your leadership. And I found in the first school that I was placed in, we did 2 years of First Lego League. And off the back of that, we were able then to say to the head, who was like, "Oh, how can we get this opportunity for all of our learners?" And then we managed to get them to invest in some kit and bring it into the curriculum. And so it's a proving ground for new ideas.
Just when I started, I set up lunchtime clubs or after school clubs for activities and maker spaces, coding clubs, and they were great, but they kind of dwindled and didn't have direction. So finding a competition with a deadline, with a brief, is a fantastic way to focus your young learners. You know, it gives them a goal to aim for, and it really, you know, grabs their attention and keeps them focused. So I think clubs are great, but clubs where you enter in competition, they're the winning for me.
And how much is a cost? You know, the cost a factor to participation. So, I mean, I think Christine, you talked about kind of running the minibus and sort of taking students somewhere. I think James, you sort of mentioned this as well. But what about also the cost of maybe purchasing kits, or you know, maybe you're getting devices and kit and stuff for the young people you work with? Like, you know, what is the cost, and is it really a barrier or not?
I'd have to say that yes, it would be a barrier. I mean, certainly for us, we'd be in the west of Ireland, and to travel anywhere to any competition you physically have to go to, you're looking at €300-400. So that's probably about £250 to straight away get them there, and that's not including buying any kit or things that you need. I think lockdown and COVID was a great thing for us because a lot of these competitions went online. I know when like you guys at Being Coolest Projects, it's so accessible now because it's literally they make their projects themselves, they log it up online, there's no cost kind of involved unless they choose there to be. So by choosing something in the hardware section, they might need to get different pieces of equipment. But certainly I know in school there would have been competitions that came up that we wouldn't have entered because we didn't have the equipment in the school already, and we wouldn't have been able to either source it on time or even afford to buy it in the first place. I can remember like even Raspberry Pi, when Astro Pi ran, first of all, it was fantastic. They were sending out the kit. It was so inclusive. So inclusivity in that regard is really, really important for us in terms of entering things. I don't know what it's like in schools in the UK, but there isn't a week goes by in Ireland where a competition or 10 come into the inbox. And you go through them and you see you can knock out loads because they don't link to the curriculum. And then you knock out another load because you can't afford to enter in the first place, be it because there's a fee for entry or like that, buying your equipment or bringing the kids to a certain place. So yeah, it's got to be inclusive. It's got to be low maintenance in terms of your input, but mainly in terms of the funding as well. Yeah.
So what's interesting about the Cyber First for Girls is it completely enraged the boys. They were like, "Where's our cyber competition, miss? What is going on?" I said, "Don't blame me, it's the government, because it's a government-run thing here in the UK." But it piqued their interest and it got them interested. So I put on a cyber club for boys. You know, it's not a problem. And I found them something to do, but it got them interested. That competition, as far as funding goes, it's online. So there's no cost involved.
And do competitions appeal universally to students in the same way, or do you target specific groups? I mean, Christine, you've talked there about girls, trying to target girls and using Cyber First Girls, but are there any kind of other groups? Do you target young people that you think will benefit disproportionately to other students, or are you targeting those that are going to go and take this subject at higher level?
We were lucky enough to get through to the finals, but they were regional, so it was a short minibus ride, a little bit of petrol for that one. We've been lucky in the past at my previous school to get some students, some sixth form students, so 17, 18-year-olds, through to a final of a competition called Cyber Centurion. Again, something we facilitated, they ran with. no teaching involved. They just went with it. And that one, the competition organisers paid for travel and accommodation and everything. When we first started the first Lego League, initially that looks like it's something quite expensive because there is a fee to enter the competition for the cost of the challenge mat and the Lego models, and you have to buy yourself a Lego Mindstorm or Lego Spike Prime. But again, you just have to be creative. So in the UK at the minute, there's the NCCE and STEM centres who can actually loan you robotic equipment. So you don't have to go out and buy. You can try before you buy. I remember after we got one robot, going to our PTA, our parents teachers group at school, and saying, "Oh, they're so crazy about robots and we need another one. Please, could you fund us?" And they very graciously bought us a couple of robots. At my new school, there was a national initiative recently called Raising Robots by Coding Success, and they have given us 2 sets of Lego Spike Prime robots, so the students here can get involved. So there are plenty of opportunities, and just have to, get networking with your computer science teachers and keep your ear out on Twitter, and these opportunities come around. So it can be quite, I wouldn't say cheap, but affordable, really.
Something you've touched on is quite interesting to me, which is this idea of, by entering into competitions, it's not just the taking part in a competition and all the benefits through that, but also young people meeting other young people at an event or through the competition, but also as an educator, you meeting other educators and creating that network. And does that resonate, Christine, with what you were just saying?
Oh, definitely. I remember my first Pi Wars. So again, I had two groups of students who went, "Miss, we want to build a robot." So, okay, let's do it. Raspberry Pi robot. There's this thing I've heard about called Pi Wars. Here's the website. Off you go. And they built it. I facilitated it. And when we went down, it was such a fantastic event. Meeting other people, other teachers, other students from around the world. It ended up, Pi Wars being international. Some Malaysian schools came along one year. And you get a chance to speak, you get a chance to see what other people are doing, you get to learn from other people. It's a great opportunity, really, not just for the kids. But I think one really important thing to just go back to is it's not just them learning about coding, it's not just them learning about robotics or cybersecurity, it's them working in teams. It's them working in pairs, in fours. The first Lego League is a group of 10, and I've had 2 groups of 10. That's the stuff they need to learn, how to take turns, how to collaborate, how to communicate, how to listen to other people's ideas and then carefully ignore them because you want to do your own. It's stuff they need to learn to do. And for me, that's the biggest benefit.
You've just given away all my trade secrets.
And to build on that slightly and go back to the whole funding question, I think that one of the things that we could fund the kit for certain competitions, but then you might also be able to push some of those challenges onto the kids. Right, okay, we want to go to this event in 7 weeks' time, but how are we going to get there? Are we going to raise some money to do that? Are we going to have they wanted T-shirts, and so how are we going to pay for those things? And actually, the kids can take on some of the responsibility of doing that fundraising as well. So to question to both of you, thinking about those people that are listening to our conversation now and perhaps are inspired to go out and try some competitions but don't know quite where to start, what would be the sort of the first steps that that teachers or educators might take? What would you recommend, both of you?
Well, I can jump in on one that we talked about earlier on, coolest projects. You can jump on that right now because it has the showcase online. It's accessible to absolutely everybody. You can just get a feel for some of the different types of digital things you can put into it. between apps, websites, Scratch, hardware, the whole lot. I would say to them to, like, I'm sure you have local education centres over in the UK or wherever in the world you're based, to sign up with your local education centres, follow competitions you've heard of on Twitter, have a look at them. I know personally, I rarely enter something I haven't heard of. So I tend to go and look them up first and kind of see. And I love competitions that will have showcases of previous winners or showcases of previous little even sections of different entries that were really, really good. So an entry might not actually have won, but they may have had a super pitch. So they'll share the pitch, or, you know, they may have done an excellent drawing or something and they'll put that up. So I'd say go and explore. I mean, Twitter in terms of hashtags, I mean, hashtag EdChatIE is when in Ireland, if you're hashtag EdChatUK or even just EdChat, follow into them, look up all the different ones that you've heard of. I mean, teaching magazines that come out to the school, have a look at what's in them. Whether it's computing or art or sporting competitions you're looking for, you're going to find them somewhere, and just, try it. Don't be afraid of dipping the feet in and sending your group off, because the rewards are far, far, far more than the heartache and the stress and the trauma of fitting it into your learning, those last minute deadlines, and making sure. I know I had a group of girls who had a deadline 2 weeks ago, and 10 minutes before the deadline I had one enter. I was going, oh my God. But the rewards of getting them to a competition, whether they win or whether they lose. I had those girls I had a deadline for, they had their competition on Saturday. The winning team's brilliant, fantastic, whatever. I was delighted with them. But there was one girl who stood out to me who had started her journey with very little experience in the area we were entering in. And my gosh, did she pull it out of the bag up on stage in front of hundreds of people the other day, and literally blew me away. So much so I had tears in my eyes when she came down off the stage. She didn't win, but I felt best for her out of everything on the whole day. So I would say don't be afraid, because first attempt failure, first attempt in learning. I think I learned over there in Raspberry Pi. James, would you be guilty of giving me that one? I'm not even sure.
First attempt in learning.
Yeah,
absolutely
I mean,
fail. Yeah.
You got to throw it out there. You have to. It's so worth it. Just give them the experience. You can't do anything wrong, really and truly, in a competition. It's different. It's not wrong.
I was trying to think back to, where did I hear about Cyber First with Girls? Where did I hear about First Lego League? Where did I hear about Pi Wars, Bed Brass Challenge, British Informatics Olympiad, Cyber Century? Where did I hear about these? And it comes down to networking. So for me, in the early days, 6-7 years ago, it was the computing at schools, the CAS forums. Then it was Twitter. I'm not, on Twitter full time, but I follow a few computer science teachers and yourselves, and someone goes, oh, I've just entered this, and you think, oh, I'm going to have a little look at that. Let's see what that is. And before you know it, you've got a couple of websites. Register your interest button. That's my advice to everyone. You go to these websites, that it might not be the time of the year that this competition runs, but there's a register your interest button, and I've slammed my work email into so many of those websites, and then it pops up in your inbox. Ooh, it's time to enter this competition. Are you interested? And so, Twitter, register your interest. We also have here in the UK subject lead development meetings, where several schools in your area get together, and the computer science teachers or heads of department get together. And, it's those times in between the sessions we're doing with a cup of tea that we go, oh, guess what we're doing next week? Network.
And share when you do a competition. Yeah, share it so that, like, that network builds, but you can be the start of building that network too by telling people about it and letting people know that the experience is out there.
And absolutely, we are going to put all of the ideas that we've discussed today in our show notes as well. So hopefully this episode can be, one of those resources that people can go to and find a competition that's for them and go and enter.
And where can listeners follow both of you so they can hear about the competitions that you're involved in?
Thank you, Carrie-Anne. I'm at Teachers Comp Sci, as I teach computer science, so Teachers Comp Sci on Twitter.
And I'm going to go look you up there now. And I am very boring. I don't have anything exciting in my name. I'm literally just at Aoife Mangan on Twitter.
Thank you very much, both of you. And we'll make sure, again, those are included in the show notes. Thank you both for joining us. It was a real pleasure talking to you, and we'll see you soon.
Lovely to see you again, and lovely to meet you.
Yeah, and you too. And thanks, guys.
Well, we're not the only educators who have taken part in competitions, so we thought we would check with you, our audience, and we asked on Twitter and on LinkedIn for you to share your experiences of computing competitions. And at Happy Jim on Twitter says, I work with ages 7 through 18 at a college and a Coder Dojo, and youth hackathons are our favourite kind of coding competition by far. It exposes them to new technology and techniques, expands their soft skills, stretches their comfort zone, gives valuable industry contact and mentoring, and it looks great on a CV or UCAS application.
And Alan Suey says that he currently has 15 classes of children aged 8 to 11 at various stages working on their gaming ideas for a Young Coders of 2022 competition.
And Claire Rollinson got in touch to say, we entered year 5 and year 6, so those are sort of 9 to 11-year-olds, into the Bebras Computational Thinking Challenge for the first time this year. The children thoroughly enjoyed it and were very proud to receive their certificates. We'll definitely enter again. The children find competing against other schools really exciting.
And Parissa, or at Parissa Vasily, said that they recently entered some year 6 and 7, so that's our kind of 10, 11 kind of age, for a coding competition via Discovery Education. They have their own visual programming platform, and it's aimed at that age group. It's a fairly new thing, and they're really looking forward to see how that goes.
And Pete Dring says, I'm at the final of the PA Consulting Raspberry Pi Awards today, which has been really inspiring for students. I like competitions that have a real-world environmental impact. Students are currently speed networking with industry pros, which is a fab opportunity. And I think we talked about that quite a lot during the podcast, right? That it's that there are other benefits, right?
Yeah, they're sort of maybe slightly untangible or unpredictable, and you can't really kind of quantify them before you go. But it's so much more than just submitting a thing and winning a prize, or not winning a prize. You know, it's way more than that.
If you have a question for us or a comment about our discussion today, then you can email us too via podcast@helloworld.cc, or you can tweet us at helloworld_edu. My thanks today go to Christine Harvey and Izzot Mangum for sharing their experience and expertise on computing competitions. Next episode, we'll be talking about how educators can support neurodiverse learners. So, James, what did we learn today?
Well, for me, I think it was that point that we made a moment ago, right? It is this wider benefit that we can get from computing competitions. Yes, they're challenging. Yes, they can be an extra drain on your time sometimes, but actually there are so many benefits. How about you?
Well, I don't think I've changed my mind. I definitely think that judging is a good way of getting involved in competitions if you're a little bit lazy like me.